Justin Baldoni will not settle. Blake Lively will not stop.
Now you have two sides here, right? So Baldoni says this was all an effort to hijack the film to get her way. Lively claims she was the victim of harassment in a hostile work environment.
The judge ordered both sides into a call with Magistrate Judge Sarah Cave specifically to find common ground before the May 18th trial date. And both sides walked away from that call without a deal. Not close to a deal. Without even the foundation of one. Sources describing what happened in that room used one word more than any other. Stubborn. Both sides. Immovable. And the trial that everyone assumed would somehow resolve itself before it reached a courtroom is now very much on course to reach a courtroom.
But this is such an interpretation of perspective, because I watched the footage, and I'm sure we all have, and, it's very easy to argue. Much opens up interpretation to what Blake Lively is saying was uncomfortable, and the key word here, unwelcome.
But here is the detail that makes this story more than just a legal update. It is not just that the settlement talks failed. It is what is happening inside Blake Lively's camp right now as a result. Because people close to her, family, friends, the circle that has been watching this unfold from the beginning, are reportedly begging her to stop, not pushing her toward a better settlement offer, begging her to walk away entirely, and she is not listening. That gap between what the people closest to Blake Lively believe is the smart move and what Blake Lively is actually doing is the story underneath the story.
And that also, they say, includes us responding in the public to the montage dancing video that we put out. Why? Because, quote, the Lively Party's counsel publicly described the contents of video footage relating to Ms. Lively's allegations as damning. Their statement continued, any woman who's been inappropriately touched in the workplace will recognize Ms. Lively's discomfort.
And it raises the question that the public has been quietly asking for months. Does she understand how this is going? Or has she been living inside a version of this situation that the rest of the world stopped believing in a long time ago? To understand where the settlement talks broke down, you have to understand what the case looks like now versus what it looked like when Lively filed. She filed with 13 claims. The judge has since dismissed 10 of them. 10.
But yeah, it's just getting super nasty, and it seems like he's not cowering to this attempted gag order.
Yeah, I don't really understand Blake Lively's point here.
You're not kidding when you say this is getting messier. The author of that book deleting her Instagram account, another who plays Baldoni's sister in the film, being harassed online.
What is left standing going into the May 18th trial is a dramatically narrowed version of the case her legal team originally constructed. A case whose architecture was built around the harassment and the smear campaign allegations that her team assembled across hundreds of pages of filings, and that the judge systematically worked through and largely rejected.
Look at this scene that was captured on tape. You'll see there's nothing nefarious going on. She says this actually proves her point. There's an argument that she is hiding her discomfort with what he's saying and doing, and she's just trying to finish the scene like any kind of professional. Which way you take it, which way you perceive it, again, that'll be up to a jury or the fact finder.
That Justin won't be bullied by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. So his lawyer told us that their recent court filings show how scared they are.
And one of the most significant allegations in Baldoni's lawsuit is that Lively sought to gain control over the editing process of the film. This is important.
The dismissals were not technicalities in the casual sense of that word. The judge went through the specific allegations, the comments about Baldoni's appearance, the dance scene footage, the weight remark, and determined that the conduct described did not meet the legal standard for workplace harassment, one by one, with explanations. The full ruling is detailed and specific in ways that Lively's public statements about the case have consistently declined to acknowledge. That is the context in which her team reposted her words last week, asking fans not to be distracted by the digital soap opera and vowing she would never stop fighting. A public statement of resolve issued after a judge had dismissed the majority of her claims. Those two things sitting next to each other tell you something important about the gap between how Blake Lively is presenting this situation and what is actually happening in it. The sources saying that people around her are begging her to settle are not fringe voices. They are described as family members, close friends, people who have been in her corner from the beginning and who are now watching something they cannot fully stop and cannot fully get behind. Their message, as reported, is that enough damage has already been done, that the case is weaker now, not stronger, that the longer this continues, the worse the reputational and professional toll becomes, that there is no version of pressing forward that produces an outcome worth what it is going to cost to get there. Lively is framing this differently. She has described the fight as being about something larger than her individual lawsuit, about digital violence, about the right of women to speak out without retaliation, about accountability for the kind of coordinated harassment that her filing described. That framing gives the lawsuit a moral weight that transcends the specific claims being adjudicated. It positions continued fighting as principled rather than stubborn, as necessary rather than reckless. The problem with that framing is that it does not match the legal reality of what just happened. The judge did not rule that the harassment Lively described did not occur because it lacked moral weight. The judge ruled on specific legal standards and specific evidentiary thresholds. The campaign against digital violence does not help Lively in a courtroom where the question is whether Justin Baldoni's conduct meets the legal definition of workplace harassment under California law, a question the judge has already substantially answered in Baldoni's favor by dismissing the majority of the claims. The public has apparently arrived at a similar assessment. A TMZ poll in the wake of the judge's ruling showed nearly 3/4 of respondents saying Lively should settle or walk away. That is not a scientific survey, but it is a real-time measure of where public sympathy has traveled. And public sympathy matters not just for reputation, but for the jury pool that will eventually decide what remains of this case. Justin Baldoni's refusal to settle is the most strategically coherent position in this entire situation. He has won the majority of the legal battle already through the dismissals. He has a trial date approaching at which the remaining claims will be argued in front of a jury. His legal team has been aggressive and methodical throughout. The evidence website, the documentary releases, the countersuits that have reframed the public narrative. He has watched Lively's case narrow dramatically without any resolution in his favor, and now her team is asking him to give her a settlement that would allow her to walk away from a situation she is losing. Why would he? What is the incentive structure that produces a yes from Justin Baldoni at this point? His team is not operating from a position of urgency. The people with urgency in this situation are on Lively's side. She is the one whose closest circle is reportedly in alarm. She is the one whose professional life, the projects, the partnerships, the career machinery that a decade of carefully constructed celebrity enables, is taking visible damage from continued association with a lawsuit that the public has stopped framing as an example of brave truth-telling and started framing as an example of something else. Ryan Reynolds is in the frame too, and his presence in all of this cannot be separated from the calculus his wife is making about whether to continue. Reports suggest that even his commitment to the current course is under some strain, that the combination of financial cost, reputational exposure, and the mounting evidence that the strategy is not working as intended has produced a situation where even Reynolds, who has been a visible participant in this fight, is reassessing. Whether that reassessment produces any change in direction from the couple is the question that people close to them cannot currently answer. Because the thing about this situation is that both Blake and Ryan have been deeply invested in controlling this narrative from the beginning. This is not a lawsuit that was filed and then handed off to attorneys while they went back to their lives. This has been an active, personal, ongoing campaign. The reposting of statements, the social media engagement with the case, the public positioning of the fight as something larger than a workplace dispute. All of it has been deliberate, and it has all been coming from the top of the operation. That level of personal investment is what makes the settlement question so complicated. You cannot build this much of your public identity around a fight, cannot frame yourself publicly as someone who will never stop, who is fighting for all women, who will not be silenced by digital violence, and then quietly sign a settlement that makes no formal finding of wrongdoing. The gap between what a settlement requires and what the public framing of the lawsuit demands is enormous. A settlement would look, given everything that has been said, like exactly the capitulation that the framing was supposed to prevent. Baldoni's countersuits, the defamation claims against Lively and Reynolds, the suit against the New York Times, remain active alongside the trial. His legal team has consistently communicated that settling the harassment claims would not resolve the broader legal picture, that there are multiple fronts on which this battle is being fought, and that a deal on one front does not produce peace across all of them. That understanding is presumably part of why the settlement talks produced nothing. Because even if Lively's team found a number that felt acceptable, the structure of what a settlement would actually accomplish is not the clean resolution either side could present as a win. What the trial in May will produce, assuming it happens, assuming no last-minute reversal occurs in the days before the court date, is a public record that is considerably more detailed and considerably more damaging to one party or the other than anything that has emerged so far. The evidence that will be presented, the witnesses who will testify, the testimony from Lively and Baldoni themselves if they take the stand. All of it will be on the record in a way that press releases and social media posts are not. All of it will be available to journalists, to the public, to future employers and collaborators who want to understand what actually happened. That is what the people begging Lively to settle are actually begging her to avoid. Not just the legal outcome, the exposure, the trial as a mechanism for producing a definitive public record of what this entire situation has been. Because right now, with the case in its current state, there is still ambiguity. There are still competing narratives. There is still enough interpretive space for both sides to claim something. A trial closes that space. It produces a verdict, And the people inside Lively's camp who have watched the judge dismiss 10 of her 13 claims, who have watched the public polling move against her, who have watched the professional relationships go quieter, those people apparently believe that the verdict the trial is likely to produce is not the one that justifies everything she has said and done to get here. She disagrees. Or she has decided that regardless of the outcome, she is going to fight it. Or she has committed so publicly and so personally to a specific framing of this situation that the internal cost of reversing course has become higher than the external cost of continuing. Any of those explanations is plausible. All of them produce the same outcome. Justin Baldoni is going to have his day in court. The trial date is May 18th. And Blake Lively, surrounded by people who reportedly want her to stop, has decided to show up. There is a version of Blake Lively's decision that deserves to be examined seriously before it is dismissed entirely. She filed a harassment lawsuit, and she believes she was harassed. Whatever the legal outcome of the specific claims the judge has ruled on, she has maintained throughout this entire process that her experience on that set was genuinely harmful, and that what happened to her afterward, the coordinated effort to damage her reputation that her filing described, was real and documented. From inside that experience, the framing of continuing as a fight for something larger than herself is not necessarily cynical. It may be the genuine belief of someone who feels wronged and refuses to let the weight of public opinion override what she experienced. The problem is that belief does not live in a vacuum. It lives inside a legal system that makes findings based on evidence and standards of proof, rather than on what someone believes happened. It lives inside a public conversation that has been shaped by everything Baldoni's team has released and everything the judge has ruled and everything that the poll numbers and the public response have produced. The sincerity of the belief does not determine the outcome of the trial. The evidence does. And the evidence situation: 10 of 13 claims dismissed, the remaining claims requiring her team to prove specific legal thresholds, is not the evidence situation that the public framing of this lawsuit implied when it was filed. The gap between the story Lively's camp told when this began and the story the judge's rulings have produced is significant enough that the people around her can see it, even if she is choosing not to fully acknowledge it. The New York Times lawsuit is the piece of this that has been somewhat overshadowed by the immediate drama of the settlement talks, but that carries significant long-term implications. Baldoni's team has made serious allegations about how the Times reported on this story, that it was a piece of narrative construction rather than journalism, that it relied on sources with clear conflicts of interest, that the portrait it painted of Baldoni was built on deliberately cherry-picked evidence. The Times has defended its reporting, and the legal challenge to that defense will work through the courts on its own timeline. But the existence of that lawsuit matters for how the trial itself will be understood. Because if Baldoni's team can demonstrate in court that the initial media coverage of this story was shaped by Lively's camp in specific and documentable ways, that the narrative that drove the initial wave of public sympathy for Lively was constructed rather than organic, the implications for how the jury understands everything else in the case are significant. Juries are human. They process the information they are given in the courtroom, but they do not arrive as blank slates. The public conversation that has been happening around this case for months, the evidence releases, the shifting polls, the judge's rulings, the accounts from people inside Lively's camp about begging her to stop, all of that is the ambient noise through which any potential juror in New York has been living. The jury selection process will try to find people who have not been significantly shaped by that noise. But that is a difficult thing to accomplish in a case this publicly saturated. The trial is as much about the public record as it is about the legal outcome for both parties. Baldoni has already won the majority of the legal battle through the dismissals. What the trial offers him, assuming it proceeds, is the opportunity to establish a more complete and more damaging version of what actually happened on the other side of his case. The depositions, the cross-examinations, the documentary evidence presented under oath rather than through a media website, all of it goes on the permanent record in a way that shapes not just the verdict, but the story that follows both people for years after the verdict. That is what the trial is, not just a legal proceeding, but a historical document. And the question of who comes out of that document in a better position than they entered it is the question that is driving every decision both sides are making right now. Baldoni's answer to that question appears to be that his position after the trial will be better than his position going in. He has watched 10 of her claims get dismissed. He has watched the public polling move in his direction. He has watched the professional relationships around her go quieter while his team has been methodically building its case. He is not a man who looks at this situation and sees risk. He looks at it and sees opportunity. Specifically, the opportunity to have the full story told in a format that cannot be managed or spun by press releases and social media posts. Lively's answer to that question is apparently that the fight matters regardless of the outcome, or that she believes the outcome will vindicate her in ways the dismissals have not. Whether that belief reflects actual strategic confidence or the specific stubbornness that the people around her are apparently naming as the problem is something only she can answer honestly. The May 18th date is real. The courtroom is booked. The people begging her to stop are apparently not being heard. And Justin Baldoni, who has nothing to settle for and everything to gain by letting this play out, is ready. The professional cost to Lively that the people around her are describing is worth taking seriously on its own terms. Hollywood's informal accountability systems are not always just or consistent, but they are real. Projects dry up. Calls do not get returned. The specific kind of goodwill that makes a career operate. The producers who take meetings. The directors who want to work with you. The brands that want your name attached to their products is sensitive to the kind of sustained negative press and public skepticism that this case has generated. Lively was one of the most reliably positive celebrity brands in the industry before this. The wit, the marriage, the carefully constructed image of someone living a life people wanted to be adjacent to. All of it was commercially valuable in ways that went well beyond her individual acting credits. She parlayed that brand into business ventures, into producing credits, into the specific kind of cultural presence that generates opportunities across multiple categories simultaneously. That brand has taken damage that her team appears to believe is recoverable. Whether they are correct about that depends significantly on what happens between now and the trial, during the trial, and after the verdict. Each of those phases carries its own risk profile. Each presents new opportunities for something to emerge that makes the current damage look like the beginning rather than the end. The people urging her to settle are urging her to accept a known quantity of damage rather than risk an unknown one. They are saying the current state, bad but not catastrophic, damaged but potentially recoverable, is preferable to whatever emerges from a multi-week trial in which both parties are subjected to the kind of scrutiny that produces revelations regardless of who is asking the questions. She is saying no, and Baldoni is saying come. May 18th is the answer to the question that everyone has been asking since this began. Will this actually go to trial? The answer, as of the collapsed settlement talks and the statements from both sides, is yes. And the story that the trial will tell is one that nobody has been able to fully predict because the evidence that will emerge has not yet been placed on the record. What is already on the record is enough to understand the shape of the situation. 10 claims dismissed. Public polling against her. Inner circle in alarm. Reynolds reportedly wobbling. Baldoni steady. And a May date that is getting closer every day while the woman who started this fight shows no signs of ending it before the courtroom does. That stubbornness, whatever its source, whether it is principle or pride or genuine belief or something else entirely, is what is driving this to trial. And the trial is going to be one of the more consequential public events in Hollywood in years. Everyone inside that courtroom will have a front row seat to what this situation actually was. And neither Blake Lively nor Justin Baldoni will be able to manage that anymore once the record is open. So here is where this sits. Settlement talks, ordered by the judge, produced nothing. Baldoni's team walked away firm, Lively's team walked away firm. But inside, Lively's camp sources describe family and close friends begging her to drop the lawsuit, saying the case is weaker now, the damage is ongoing and worsening, and that continuing is not the win she believes it is. Baldoni has no incentive to settle given the case's current trajectory. Ryan Reynolds is reportedly showing signs of strain, and the trial is set for May 18th, with both sides apparently determined to be there. Do you think Lively's decision to press forward, despite the judge dismissing the majority of her claims, reflects genuine principle? Or is she too publicly committed to the fight to exit it gracefully, regardless of what the evidence actually shows? And if this goes to trial, and a jury decides, who do you think has the stronger position after everything that has already been established? Drop everything in the comments, hit that like and subscribe. Because May 18th is coming, and this trial is going to produce a public record that neither side will be able to walk back.